Welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. I am your host, Andrew, back with another session here. Slightly earlier. I say slightly earlier, but a time is arbitrary and different everywhere. So who knows? Maybe it's later for you. Maybe it's earlier. Maybe you're listening to this after the fact, and at which point time no longer carries any meaning. Oh, I forgot. There was one place I forgot to tell people that the show was live, and it's in the Discord. I don't, that's actually probably maybe the most effective one because I can tag everyone. I'm surprised so many people are still there when nobody ever does anything there, and I tag them once. I slam the everything tag in there once a week, but who knows? Maybe people just mute it. But then what's the anyway? That's aside from the point. I'm Andrew. I'm the host of the show, the publisher, all that stuff. Indiepocalypse, that monthly anthology of games that it is. We are here with game makers, a full suite of game makers from that aforementioned. Or I mean, not from. I mean, they've been in it once. Indiepocalypse, that is. But to start off with a group of game developers who you may know partially from issue 43 of Indiepocalypse. I'm like, what's the newest one? Issue 43 in Indiepocalypse, with a time traveler's guide to past delicacies. It's Fantasia Malware. Hello.
Oh, hey.
And who have we got?
Hello.
Can I have Fantasia Malware sound off one by one to put a name
Yes,
to a voice?
I'm Gabriel from Fantasia Malware.
Hello, I'm Jira, also from Fantasia Malware.
And I'm Chloe, surprisingly also from Fantasia Malware.
The perfect trio. Hello, welcome to the show. Important question to start it all off from the important Indiepocalypse question that the people come here for, or maybe it's just something I ask as informal marketing for myself to figure out because I need to know the answer to this question. How'd you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I guess I personally at least knew it just from Itch, and then we also friends with Jeremy Couillard.
Okay.
That was also past edition, so I guess, yeah,
Just
from that.
Just slow osmosis through being around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gabriel's been the one that's been talking to you more. I've heard of it around. I've heard this thing around. I've also seen a lot of these like compilation releases, and I think it's a nice idea. But I haven't been following it so directly, actually.
No.
But I like it.
And nor do I expect people to be. I think one of the benefits, I think, of anthology kind of collaborative works in an art form is that you can just dip in, submit a release, and not have to dedicate your life to it, you know? But it feels increasingly that people want you to be like, hey, get in on our brand. Make sure you're... if you're part of something, make sure you're posting our brand. Make sure you've got all our stuff live and ready to go. But anyway,
Also,
yeah.
Well, I mean, something I really like about it's gonna like compliment you on your show about your products.
Don't worry, I will find. I guarantee I'll find a way to deflect it somehow.
What I think is kind of like what the indie scene needs, which is kind of like a creating a context or like creating relationships between projects, because I feel like it's
creating a conversation about what's happening, not just things kind of happening in isolation, no connection made between them or no commentary on them.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's just a bunch of people like posting on x.com, whatever it's called. Like, just made when you shoot them up, hashtag game dev, whatever. And it's like, and like, it's like, it's kind of interesting to kind of like, to give these things other spaces to inhabit, and I think like a game anthology is like a nice example of that.
Yeah, and this show is another kind of like extension of this idea of I want to kind of get people outside of, like, in the same way that I don't need people to be fully dedicated to the brand, I don't need everyone to be best friends, but I like the idea of the like convention acquaintance, that if games were a medium where you could regularly go to conventions, I mean that in a way that an average person would go there because they make money going there, like other artists do from time to time. You'd be like, oh, I know you from shows. I'll see you at the next show, and that's the extent of our relationship. But I think that's a nice relationship to have sometimes.
Yeah. Cool to know what people doing. It's kind of like the pizza verse.
Right. I was like, I don't want to make a community. I want to make a collection of people who are casually aware of each other. But and also, like, I realize I've discovered this last week. There or 2 weeks ago, some number of weeks ago, issue 43 came out, and then 2 weeks after that, I went to like a art fair, and I sold more issues of Indiepocalypse on that one day than I did in the 2 weeks of being online, excluding Patreon, which makes the bulk of the money. But
I mean, that's been our experience too, honestly.
Yeah.
That like in-person events are so much more rewarding, both personally and in terms of like actual numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like how it's strange, like, because like you joke, I posted making my shooter up #game dev, but like, what do? Posted doing some of my work on my time traveling art game #indie dev. Like, even if you type in #alt game, I don't know how much that really changes anything. It's like speaking of #alt game, if people weren't familiar, well, what is a Time Traveler's Guide to Past Delicacies?
It's basically a game where you are guided by a sock puppet to go back in time and to steal recipes from the past. And it's basically me being alone in my living room, half naked, pretending to be a sock puppet. You don't see the naked parts of me.
I'm realizing increasingly the more you talk. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
We're all half naked right now. I'm just kidding.
Yes, no, that's why this is a no camera show, so people can be whatever state of dress they want to be.
No, but like originally it was made, like last year we organized a series of 4 events in Berlin where we all live at the moment, and we made each of us made a game for each event, and that was kind of my contribution for one event. And back in the day, I was really fascinated by the interactions of food and colonialism and stuff like that. So I decided to make a game about that. And don't ask me why I used the sock puppet. I don't really know. It was fun, and
right.
I had fun doing it. And yeah.
And I guess like in this game you go through like very specific times in history.
Yeah, you basically go. You have like 2 aspects. One is that it's like kind of a fake cooking game where you have to follow these recipes, but it's not at all a functional cooking game where you kind of fun slicing vegetables or whatever you do in a cooking game. Like it's super clunky and fucked up, and it doesn't really work. And you have like these sock puppets speaking in your ears the whole time, and then you have like other scenes or aspects where you actually travel back to prehistory or the Middle Ages, and you kind of have to snap these pictures or like steal recipes, so to speak, from the people. And it's kind of this idea of like kind of time traveling colonialism, where it's like the past has already happened, so it's up for grabs, and you can just plunder it as much as you want. But everything is kid friendly.
Yes, right. It's. I think it was. You said it was meant to be. Not like a public. It's a publicly played game. I'm trying to think of the phrasing for that.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea, like these events we do and we organize, are based on the idea that we want to perform games live. Maybe
Yeah.
you can relate us more to that. But so this game was originally made to be played in front of an audience. So I basically played it behind a little toy kitchen that I bought with the money from the German government.
Wait, but didn't you film it naked? So it's actually not so kid friendly.
Yeah, but we don't.
Well, the kids don't need to know that.
I just throw a spanner in the works.
I mean, it could be the kind of thing where it's like a reflection in one of the spoons on the kitchen.
Yeah, but maybe that's actually.
And if you digitally zoom in.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the reflections in the videos, but it's not impossible that you see parts of my naked body for the true people really into analyzing this video game.
Yes.
But
the true gamers out there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's in the wiki documentation of the game. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, that was it was very exciting when that popped into my feed, because there, I'm not a what's it called? I'm not a newcomer to indie games in like the indie scene, despite this being not that old. Like I have, I was like, oh wait a minute, there's one of those things I realized. Like I have what's it called? Pictures of a recently documented year, like in my itch, like to playlist towards the beginning, and that was what, like a decade ago or something.
Oh yeah, that was actually like a jam game I made 8 years ago. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Fantasia Malware, what a cool little group. I love people who are just like doing this stuff. So it is for whatever join is to join this is equally like I love when people I recognize submit the thing. I'm like I love these kind of like art collectives that are springing up around games. It's nice when you can also, the government will give you money to do it.
Well, actually, so there's 3 of us, and we were actually previously in a much bigger collective called AAA Software, which also made like Vito games.
Yeah. Because there are like, and I think that's it's cool. I love if you spend time on Wikipedia and you start going to indie bands, all those people have 10,000 associated acts because within that indie space, I think a lot of people constantly like move to and from different groups and different collectives and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The way that labels work in the music world was a bit of an inspiration for how we want to work as Fantasia Malware, which is that the 3 of us do projects together and publish them under the Fantasia Malware name, but we also do solo projects and publish them under that name as a label. And then we also we put on these events and invite people whose work we really respect to kind of showcase that then gets kind of like associated with our name. So we were also a bit inspired by that model of like music labels being these kind of nuclei around which little communities spiral.
Yeah, I've been really thinking about like how do you do the video game equivalent of having like an opening act, because that is like, it's a great way to like, it's a kind of like self-supporting system sometimes, of like somebody, there needs to be a good way to get in the door.
I also think the other cool thing about doing live events and like it was also like in kind of games as performances, which is also kind of like music adjacent.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you go to a show and you kind of watch, what's the music, whatever. The other cool thing is it's like, I think there's a lot of people who are interested in games, like aesthetically, or kind of like curious about them, but they're not gamers.
Yeah.
And like I think we found ourselves with like a very like interesting audience, because it's like there's a lot of people out there who are into games and like into weirdos making games and independent stuff, who just don't follow game stuff. Like, so it's like I think showing games in different contexts means also that you have different types of audiences as well. Yeah.
Like working non-game events, I've really had to like. Have you ever had to explain to people who say? Have you ever had the warning phrase of "Sorry, I'm not a gamer," and you try to explain? But wait a minute, these are not games how you think they're games. They're something
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
I mean, literally,
Every,
I feel
every
like
other week or something like that, probably.
I feel like literally I'm in the collective, and I keep saying. I'm like, wait, but I'm not even really a gamer.
Right. No, there's nothing There's nothing healthier for the game development as a medium than people who aren't gamers.
But it's also one of the reasons we started doing more stuff in person as well, is because, I mean, not the only reason, but I think for me, I was like, yeah, I'm making these games, but I don't actually play games, and so I would like people like me to see these things, and
Yeah.
I think the way they would see them is in an event where they can kind of, where they can kind of tune into a space for an evening and be really present, but not have this like all these kind of like humps to overcome. Because if you're not, I guess like we kind of forget that if you're not a gamer, you might not even have a computer that can play most of the stuff that's available.
Yeah, I had I drug up an old laptop for the event I was at last week, and I realized that I mean it has Vista on it, and it can't run like any of the games I have. It can run like I had to go with a browser-based game because it couldn't even like Godot in Unity would just crash before even opening, and I don't know what it was missing to do that. And it's just like, you know, who knows? You know, they still sell. People still have VHSs.
Yeah, not to mention all the lost souls who have Mac computers.
Yes, right. Yeah, no.
Which is like most of the art world.
Yes.
Right. That is it's a weird kind of like it just kind of happened naturally. Was there like good software for art on Macs? Is that just how it happened?
Millennials were kids marketed as like the creative computers, which is
Right.
funny because like nowadays they're really actually
They're
not
junk.
Yeah, like not actually good for that, but still so many people are kind of stuck in that mindset.
Yeah. I didn't expect to have a Apple hater segment.
Oh,
but
Let's go deep.
I recently lost my phone. My phone got stolen, and a friend very nicely gave me her old phone, which is an iPhone. It's like I fucking hate it.
yeah. I had an iPod, a nice big iPod. It worked great, played music. It needed,
iPod was sick. Yeah, I had an
Yeah.
iPod. That was.
I needed to replace the audio jack. Like that's all that was broken. I just needed a 35mm audio jack, which was like $2 to buy. And I took it to the Apple store. I was like, "Can you open my iPod so you can just replace the jack?" And like, "Sorry, we don't do that. You just have to buy a new one." And I'm like, "I know what the problem is."
That's thinking different.
And I just can't like open it. Like I have no tools, and I trust someone to do that without. It's also way cheaper to not buy Apple products. It's so much cheaper.
That's the real crunching point, I think.
I mean, it's such an absurd branding that they have because it's like.
This is the part of the podcast where you're like really passionate.
Yeah.
Because it's like their branding is like we are the premium like brand, but we make stuff that is the most disposable of everybody. Like it's like
Yeah, right. It's like I can't just crack open. I have a PC. I put this on, and I can look inside of it. Like it has a clear side, and if I want to replace something, I can unscrew it and just put in a new card, and then I have a new card, and I can game better, like a true gamer. Play all these intense art games that I get for Indiepocalypse with extreme graphic settings. But
did you see the Apple VR thing with the eyes?
no, I do not watch any tech keynotes in my life. I have no interest in them.
You should keep it that way.
I mean, it's kind of amazing and how ridiculous it is. It's like because it's like this I mean just like what it looks like. Whereas because it's like it's this VR goggles. Apple's doing VR goggles, but they have like a screen on the front.
Okay.
So when you're like using it or something, and then someone wants to come up to you and then talk to you, it'll like show your eyes, but they're like
okay. Yes, I did see this. Sorry, I saw pictures of this. I did.
Yeah. It like looks so funny.
Because I saw that, and I saw like it had like an AR of some guy looking at pictures of his family, and so I saw someone made a funny X. You call them no, they call them. That's actually the one good thing about X.com is they now call them posted reposts, and that is, I think, my approved version of all. I never want to tweet. I never want to skeet. I never want to coast. I literally want to post and repost, and that's it.
X.
You just want to exit.
I want to reply to things. I want to repost things. I want to like them, maybe favorite them, but cute names make me hate every social media website. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon in that way, and I'll gladly take that mantle. But yes.
We're united by our curmudgeonliness.
But that said, I have some questions as we're winding towards the end of this segment here. But two important kind of like mainstay questions for Indiepocalypse Radio from starting from Seoul. Important question: what is your favorite type of rock?
Songs or the music, you mean?
It's that in itself is determinative of how someone answers the question. You know, it is part of the question. Dealer's choice.
When I was in school, I had a pet rock, and that's my favorite type of rock.
Pet rock.
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
Like a Neopet, but a rock.
Yeah, I think it was like Fredo or something.
Fredo the rock.
And I drew a face on it. And all my other friends had pet rocks. Also, we weren't 6, we were like 13.
So you're a cool kid.
Yeah.
Listen, that's a bombshell, but the more important bombshell is it didn't even come with a face on it. You had to make your own face.
Yeah, I drew it with a lead pencil.
Okay.
And he had like a ballpoint pen, which was his like bazooka.
So I guess Fredo is our favorite rock.
Yeah.
And now the follow-up question: do you have a favorite Toho character?
Toho's like it's like that like shoot 'em up witch game where
Yes.
it's like I mean I don't think any I'm the only one who even knows what it is.
Yes, I could tell by the deafening silence.
Toho. Is there like there's these Toho songs that are really good, right?
Yes. Yeah, I played one in the preamble. I'm a big fan of. It's got good. Toho is very cool. It's kind of like a guy who made some bullet hells, but then you can kind of do whatever you want with the characters. If Fantasia Bauer wanted to make a Toho game, you could do it pretty easily, like officially.
But like, do you know there was this like ancient meme video called like Ran Roo, and it was like this McDonald's, like Ronald McDonald, and I think it was like a YouTube remix of the Toho song.
That sounds very likely, because it's been around since like
It's like
the early.
or something like that.
That does sound like an approximation of a Toho song, and
Yeah,
sounds
so-
like something I would have seen like that or kind of early meme YouTube style of, Anyway, it's been around for 1997. It's been around a while, but it's a cool. I like to think about the doujin scene every now and then. It's a cool like little. Like an approach to kind of indie art and game development in general. The
Doujin?
like doujin. It's the Japanese approximation for like independent or hobbyist. I don't know the exact translation of it, what it would exactly translate to, but it's somewhere between like hobbyist sort of indie stuff. It's cool. But
So is it like when people say like a doujin manga? Is that what they like a hobbyist manga artist or something? Is that what that
yes, yeah. It's like a independent like hobbyist stuff.
means? I see. Okay.
I think if you search it, sometimes it has a certain connotation in English language Google. But broadly, I think that's one of those kind of like English bastardization kind of things. Where, like, you know, I get that happens in a lot of languages, I imagine, where they bar a loan word just becomes to mean a very specific thing instead of what it means in its original language. But that all said, Gabriel, Jira, Chloe, thank you all for being here. We're gonna go on a break soon. When I say soon, I mean in a moment. Hope you can stick around later. I'm buying time while I find Fubar. There it is. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in the zine.
For having. Thank you.
We will see everyone in the other half of the other side of 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Goodbye for now. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Husker Du with Masochism World. We are here with our next guest, who you may know from. Oh no, I think it's 42, right? Yeah, no, 41. I was close. I'm getting better at it. I need to now that I have so many of them, I need like a multiple month period of just like hammering in which game is in which number. Now that I have 43 of them. But anyway, with the game Was Where is Rodfire Productions. Hello, how you doing today?
Hello. Surprisingly, I'm not tired today.
Oh, that's great. I am up and ready to go. This is not a situation where it's like midnight for you, right? I run into those.
No, it's like 11 something.
Okay, yes. You're not too far off. Where it's like a nice noon time for me, noon and a half, as they say. Yeah. I have to I theoretically have to at some point organize somebody a show for like a recording for people in different parts of the U.S., Europe, and East Asia, and I'm trying to like, what is the perfect time to do that? And there's like 1 hour or something that kind of functionally works for everybody, but some people have to get up early and some people have to get up late. But no, I enjoy a sleepy weekend.
I don't think there really is a perfect time. It's just one of those, someone has to suffer.
Yes, right. And one of those people is going to be me because I have to like do it at like 7 in the morning on a weekend. And I was like, I got up at 10 o'clock today, I think. So I don't want to get up in the weekends. I work all week. Weekends are for sleeping. Speaking of, nope. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse? There's no transition for that. I don't have one.
I'm not really sure. I feel like just over a while I've just heard the name. I maybe have seen the jams.
Yeah.
I just kind of just saw it around. Didn't really think too much of it.
Right. That's kind of it's weird in doing this so long. It's weird for it to become sort of like background noise of indie gaming in a way, when it kind of is if it's around long enough. It's, you know, it gets in the featured usually like once every 3 or 4 issues. They'll put it on that featured front page. I don't know how often it shows up in the jams.
Well, I found the reason I even joined 41, I think it was because I saw it in the jams, and I was like, might as well.
Right.
I probably won't get it anyways, and then I got in.
That's the whole goal I hope for. Is people go, I might as well try. It takes me 2 seconds to submit. It couldn't hurt.
Yeah, basically.
No, and I'm glad when people do, because like it's I guess the best way to do it is to tell me a little bit about Was Where, or talk a little bit about Was Where I not to the listeners that are not people who, you know, assuming that they not actively played through it all as part of curation process.
Well, Was Where is an interactive fiction that I wrote for the Trans Fucking Rage Jam, because I figured, why not?
Right. Yeah, that's listen. Hosted by a Indiepocalypse alum as well, Stargate Sasha. From all the way back, I got issue 22. I got. But yeah, that's also a perfect reason to make a game. Is why not?
Yeah, and so far I've joined all the jams. That's one of her trans jams.
Yeah.
So far I've joined all of them. Just because, why not? It seems fun. It forces me to do something, to actually write stuff.
Yeah, right. And it's like, I think it's very easy to get caught up. Like if you're just like on hashtag indie dev, it highlights a very specific type of game, and if you are like if that's all you're looking at, you can kind of get trapped into thinking like, oh well, I'll never finish a game because it has to be a proper hashtag video game.
Well, the thing is, it's not that I don't finish games. It's
Right.
that most of the games I finish are games that aren't mine.
Oh, okay.
Because most of the time I end up programming on visual novels.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I'm not making my own games.
Right, and that's like a whole and that is like one of those we were talking about sort of in the previous segment. That's kind of a benefit of the indie space of like sometimes you can make your own game, sometimes you can program for just other like you have a steady group that you would join as a programmer, and you just kind of, hey, here's a jam, I know how to program things, I'm gonna program.
It's kind of a mix. It's for some of my things, it's like, oh yeah, I can just program for this. Why not? See if anyone wants a programmer. And
Yeah.
for other things, it's like a specific person I've worked with multiple times is like, hey, I need a programmer. Would you like to program? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that's where my first projects came from, was just them continually hiring me. Well, I say hire, but it was all
Yes.
for free because there were game jams.
Right.
So I didn't get paid, but
Right. It's collaboration, we'll call it. But yeah, so what encouraged you to be like, okay, I want to just like make one of my own games. Like, I want to sit down and just make a game of my own, through and through.
I honestly don't remember my original inspiration. I just generally enjoy making things. Like,
Right.
my passion isn't games, my passion is making things. So I make a lot of things, not just games. Like, heck, before this call started, I was working on a website.
Right.
So
I have a table in my corner that once it gets empty out of books, I'm like, it's dangerous because like I could build models on this thing now. And I've shelf space to put them on now, and I think there is a what's it called? Part of how I describe games sometimes at events to people who say that they're not a gamer, and I try to describe Indiepocalypse to them. I go, well, it's just art that happens to be in the shape of a game, and I think that might be in the same way that you like, oh, I just want to create something, and sometimes the thing I want to create happens to be a game.
art was my original passion, and it still always will be my
Yeah.
passion. Anything related to art, I'm usually somewhat interested in. If not having dabbled in it myself, I dabble in a lot of things, maybe too many things.
No, you can never listen. Life's too short to not dabble in things, I'd rather have a mixture of 8 million experiences than be a prodigy at one.
Yeah, I agree, but sometimes my brain just wants to jump to a project before finishing the other project.
Oh, yes,
and
right.
now I have multiple unfinished projects.
Yeah, that is a problem in and of itself. I game jams, and that is where game jams are handy because it's like you gotta get it done by this. So
Yeah, if there's a hard deadline, I can usually finish it. If there's not a hard deadline, then it just goes into the ether.
yes,
It'll eventually come back in like a year.
right. There's nothing. The secret sauce of Indiepocalypse is that I gave myself a deadline. Is this it keeps coming out because it has to come out, because I decided one time at some point in time it comes out the first Friday of the month, and that just keeps it coming out.
and now there's an expectation from the people who follow
You're right, right.
Indiepocalypse.
Now there's like a Patreon, so it's like theoretically there are people who would be like, "Where's my thing on my first Friday? I'm paying for these things." Yeah, it's. But I think hopefully I think kind of like with game jams, I think there's like a casual understanding of like not like the what's the word I'm looking for, like fans, you know. Uh, I think fans can get annoying. That kind of like fandom is the word I was looking for. Fandom can get annoying, and I think, fortunately, I don't have that.
Yeah, fandom is really cool at times, but other times it's really not that great.
Right. I think I imagine especially you are the subject of the fandom, and you're like, I just want to take a break.
Honestly, one of my biggest fears is one that no one will like my stuff to where no one will even care to be fans
Right.
and make a fandom, and two, that my fandom is horrible.
Yes, right, right. I see. Occasionally, I'll see people be like, "Sorry for not posting lately," and I was like, "What? You can just like relax." But there is like the kind of like ownership that people would take over. But
Mm-hmm.
who
For,
kn-
luckily for me, time doesn't exist, so if you haven't posted in months, I won't notice.
Yeah, perfect. And the stratification of social media just makes it all so much easier because it'd be like, oh no, I posted on a different site. Wink. I missed this one. Or people aren't checking things as obsessively. But it's exciting. I love to what's the word I'm looking for? See people's art. Oh, you got a little like. Sorry, I'm looking at your page and I like your little this little GIF down there at the bottom here. Just genocide artist art thing. It's a very good little GIF at the bottom of you. Good web pages. I can see why you would make a web page. I like this web page.
Oh, are you talking about my website?
Yes, your website.
Oh, the little GIF is like a button that's often seen on smaller websites, like
Yeah.
NeoCities or GeoCities.
Yeah, I am old, relatively speaking. So I'm like, yes, they used to have these on websites all the time when that was just what websites looked like.
Well, they still have those communities still exist. I'm a part of them.
Yes, I love this kind of like callback, this movement back to like Web 1.0 sort of stuff, and like personal websites. It is very. I was talking to a regular friend of the show, and we talk a lot about this sort of like people. It's cool when people have their own sites, that are like their own spaces online, and you can just like have all of your own stuff there. Because it'll always look better than like what you can do on something like Twitter or even Itch, and also if those things disappear. You still got your website.
I just love smaller websites.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm not even active on any of my social media other than just scrolling through it.
Right.
The best way to see if I'm alive is straight up just to go to my GitHub and to see if I've been contributing anything. Because I can tell you I have been.
Yeah, that is like... I think that's like a cool thing, because that is like GitHub's like, yeah, well, I am making something, not like I am posting about things that I'm making. It's kind of like a trail of the things that you're making.
Honestly, I need to post about things I make because I never do. I don't know how to market.
No, I haven't figured it out either. So
it feels awkward even mentioning what I'm working on.
Right. That's, I mean, part of this is the whole zine thing is like, I am bad at doing that. I'm not a great person in that kind of, like, I have no instinct to market, but I'm like, if I can muster up that instinct and do that, I can do that on behalf of other artists who I think are similarly like me, who do not want to post updates and market and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like one of these days I'll just, when I get bigger and actually make bigger projects, I'll just have to hire someone
Yes.
to do my social media because I can't do it.
No, I've that is a thing beyond my budget. But I'm like, what if I could have someone to do that? That'd be a much better. They would do someone who would even log on to TikTok, which I refuse to do. Or especially like I could never market. I don't like the culture of how people market on there. There's something about it that drives me nuts. But I bet there's someone else who'd be really good at it. Could get the word out to people, but that ain't me.
My marketing skills is, hey, I just published this thing.
Yes.
Here it is, and then disappear.
Yeah, no, it's a good. It's a bad strategy, but my aunties go, yeah, it's a good strategy. I love it. I approve of that strategy. My marketing technique is increasingly go to art fairs. I feel like it works better than posting online.
One of these days I want to go to those, but it still requires money to travel.
Yes, right. Like if you don't live near one, like it's harder, and like right if you don't have like a means of, like if you don't have like a car, and then you have to we have to find another way. I am unfortunate that I've always had to basically have one in order to like work a job at all. It's kind of like a necessity of my life, which is not fun because I don't know if people know this, but cars are very expensive. Even cheap ones are very expensive. And the curse of cheap ones is they're actually more expensive than expensive ones because they're cheap and they always break.
Unless you get a good, cheaper car.
Yes, yeah. I got like a super lucky at some point. Like my first car was like a $2,000 Volvo that like that commuted me to college for like a very long time, and it like just kind of worked, and it did not cost very much money, and it was like very old though. It had like a tape. I think I had to install a radio so they would have a tape deck in it.
I mean, my mother always buys like 2,000 to 5,000 cars.
Yeah.
And they work well. The last one she had was almost as old as me, and it only went out like a year or two ago.
Yeah. If you get like if you find the right ones, you'll get like a good one. I have this weird childhood memory of a car we had. I don't remember ever riding in, but it had a wasp nest in it.
Ew.
That's all I don't know why I thought of it when I was thinking of it. Like it very much was like an old looking car, and what a strange sense memory I had for a moment. But yeah, no, that is an ideal way to get a car. Like, listen, having a weird backup camera is nice, but also not having to pay $1 billion for a car, beautiful.
I love them when they're cheap and they work.
Yes, yeah, it's the same like philosophy with phones. I buy a phone once my phone literally breaks. I buy a new phone, then I go, what's your cheapest phone, please? And then I get that.
Yeah, my last phone was $60. It lasted me 4 years. I stopped using it because the screen started messing up and started freezing and such. Like, okay, I guess I have to get a new phone. Which is $70.
Yes, that is roughly like what my phones cost. I got a new phone literally because the OS was getting so bloated I could not fit anything else on it. Like my storage space was so like I had like 8 gigs or whatever of storage space, and the Android OS just kept getting updating. Like every time there's a software update, I had to like balance. I had to get an SD card so I could put like most of the stuff on that. I just had to keep balancing apps of like I had like 6. I was like, okay, do I need my banking app so I can upload a check? Well, I guess I could uninstall it. Then when I need it, I can reinstall it and uninstall something else.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. My last phone had 16 gigs, but even then, no matter what, it'd just be constantly filling up with space. I'd delete all my apps and it'd still be filling up with space. Like, man, this really sucks.
Yeah, it's like there's it's kind of like, Fantasia Malware mentioned it earlier. It's like some people, like gaming kind of really overestimates how much stuff people have, like access to like PCs that can run like Unreal and Unity and stuff like that. And I think people kind of like underestimate like the benefit of making a game that can just like run on a phone or like on a very cheap laptop.
One reason why I love just making web games or just RenPy games, because you can run those very easily.
Right. There's
export to Android. Yes, you can.
Yeah, they're super like low taxing things, and like I think there's like I say this all the time. People within like the broader game dev scene, they just have too much money. So there's like this assumption of like how much this weird baseline assumption of just people. Of course, people can afford huge PCs that run all sorts of crazy stuff, but it's like, no, they can't. What if? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Like I feel that a lot. Like heck, I only just like a day or two ago switched out the RAM on my laptop to be able to have 20 gigabytes. It used to be 8.
Right.
But like, I'm a game development student. We work on Unreal mostly, and looking at some of the stuff on there, it's like, wow, this would never run on my computer.
Yeah, the fact that I can run like most modern games comes from knowing someone who upgraded and getting their hand-me-down video card. And,
or stuff like Unreal and just general.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen metahumans for Unreal?
No.
They're beautiful. Basically, they're just like models that you can make humans with. Good-looking humans. Like, they're beautiful. They're so huge. They're so huge. Why is it like a gigabyte for one model? On the low end. On the low end, because there is high quality, mid, and low. Low quality, why is it 100 gigabyte? No, 1 gigabyte.
Yeah, there's It's and I on this show itself, there's a lost episode because I ran out of space while I was actively recording one of these shows. And then I in my hurry to delete things, I accidentally deleted the active recording, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, there was like people underestimated how much like, oh, of course everyone just has 100 gigs lying around for a game. They just have nothing else on their like computer, right?
I'm constantly running out of space on my computer. I had to get a external storage just to put games on because they're so huge.
No, I have an external storage primarily. I mean, just Indiepocalypse alone, I have to load. I keep loading the past issues onto an external drive because they would like drain all of my space. They would monopolize my entire hard drive. And I need I need to have them all, partially just archivally, but now to like, since I have started doing like that tape thing, I need to be able to produce like issue like on a USB stick on like at any point in time. So I need to have like an external hard drive, which luckily are not too. In my mind, I'm like, those things are so expensive, but they're only like $100. Only, but for a terabyte, that feels very cheap, or multiple terabytes.
In my heart, $100 for a terabyte hurts, but I did it anyways.
Yes, now I'm better than I have been in the past, but I'm still like, it is impossible in my mind to imagine that somebody would spend more than $1,000 on a thing that is not like a car or a house.
Yeah, I just realized that my external drive is more expensive than my phone, and that hurts as well.
Yes, yeah. It's listen, game devs, we're not all people who are just like, yeah, I'm gonna fund my studio. That's kind of like the independent art space is like. I've been turning towards using the term no budget to describe the level of indie space that I work with more often.
Yeah, I always hate it when you see like guides or stuff saying, "Oh yeah, this is what you do. Make sure you get your budget." I'm like, "What budget?"
Right.
My budget is if I have extra money at the side, like, do I want to spend money on this or just do it myself?
Yeah, my budget is my bank account. They are one and the same. It's a yeah. The I've been talking about like the budgeted space of and similar, like instead of like indie versus whatever, it's like budgeted versus no budget is kind of a term I've used occasionally, trying to, as you know, as if any what's the word, any of these words have any meaning at all, and they will not be eventually just co-opted by somebody.
Oh, they definitely will be co-opted.
Yeah,
Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but they will be.
Yeah, if the term no budget took off, people would be like, I'm a no budget indie dev. Me and my team are a no budget indie dev. I'm like, you cannot be a no budget indie dev with a funded team and contract works. That's not how not having a budget works. Anyway, before we go, 2 questions. You've had a little time to prepare. I have 2 important questions for you. Number 1, what's your favorite type of rock?
See, here's the thing.
Yes.
I love rocks a lot, like to the point where outside, you know how some places outside their buildings have just like a little section with rocks?
Yes.
I like to steal those.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite. To me, I love all rocks in their own unique ways. I just like unique looking rocks.
No, that's
where I just need to steal them.
That's a good answer. A couple of weeks ago, somebody weirdly matched my type of rock, which is like the kind of rock you find around railroad tracks that you throw at things.
I have stolen those as well.
Those are that kind of like platonic idea of a rock. And do you have a favorite Toho character?
I actually don't. I don't know a lot about Toho. All I know is Bad Apple.
Okay.
All I know is Bad Apple and how often people make remakes of Bad Apple. It's a good song though.
Yeah, Bad Apple is a good song. It's a cool video. People, it's the race to what is on more available platforms. Is it Bad Apple or is it Doom? Did somebody count? I don't know. But
I think I'd say Bad Apple because you don't actually have to.
Like,
it doesn't actually have to be able to run something.
Right.
It just has to be able to show an image.
It doesn't require an input from you, so you can put it on anything that will play anything that is an image. You can run Bad Apple on, but it's cool.
I saw someone print out every frame and then do a stop motion with every frame, but they were moving the camera around the whole time and moving the frames around. It was very cool.
Yeah, animation, and I love I just love art.
Gotta love art.
Rodfire Productions, thank you for joining me today. We're gonna go on a break. We'll be back in like, where is my little break thing? There we are. In like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But until then, thank you for joining me. BRB. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Your Boyfriend Sucks with, I think it's like Diu X3. I don't know the pronunciation of Diu, but I've played it a couple times. That song just rules. I like sometimes if I'm backed against a corner and I'm like, what is the song to play? I'd be like, I'm gonna go to an old standby of songs that I think rule. But that said, we are here with our next guest from casting our back to Indiepocalypse issue number 25 with Catch's Abyss Tactics. It is Kiefer. Kiefer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Oh no, I did not transition to the right. There we go. Now we're not on the right stream thing. I forgot to click the chat 3 where you're kind of like, you gave me a little transparent image, so I made it so you're kind of like leaning on your name. It's a little bit of fun.
Oh yeah. It's fancy, huh?
Yeah, having a little bit of fun here on twitch.tv. But I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back 18 months, only over a year.
Yeah, I know.
How did you hear about it? Do you remember how you heard about Indiepocalypse?
I feel like I've always known about Indiepocalypse. I I have no idea. It's really just it was there. I don't remember ever submitting. It's
Well, you did.
apparently yeah. Apparently I did.
Yeah, you did 18 weeks ago, and I was like, look at this game. That's a cool game.
Yeah, it was not that I don't
Right.
remember
Yeah.
the anthology or remember being a part of it. I just don't remember the submission process. I just remember it being like it's just there. Like it's a natural part of life.
Right, and speaking of that, your game is also. I have my massive 7,000 game to playlist, also in there as I see, because I'm like I recognize this looks familiar. But that is like speaking of, but for people who do not find this game familiar, what is Catches Catches? I'm always bad at saying. Sometimes I'm killer at saying that name. Sometimes I'm very bad at it.
It's a weird one.
It's like
It's Katya's Abyss.
Yes.
Katya is what I say.
It's all about like my confidence. If I lose confidence, I can't say it. Katya's Abyss Tactics. What is this thing?
It is Minesweeper,
Yeah.
but if Minesweeper was also a tactics game, which is kind of I describe it like chess.
Yeah.
It's not really like chess, but it's units on a grid that you're turn-based units on a grid that you're moving around, and like complicated chess, but you're also
Right.
playing Minesweeper.
Yeah, it's not a Final Fantasy Tactics, the most complicated chess, you know.
Yes, it's not. The tactics part of the game is intentionally pretty limited
Yeah.
as to not be overwhelming.
Right, great, because when you already have like this added like Minesweeper element to it, like I'm a fan of intense systems on top of games that are complicated, and sometimes too complicated for me. I'm like, thank you, I'll take my leave here. But
Yeah, it just makes a learning curve that's too tough to get into.
right. But I similarly respect a game that is just like full on. What's the word I'm looking for? Just like this is the thing that we want to make, and it will not be for everybody. I love art that's not for everybody.
Yeah, it really is. So the game came about because I woke up in a stupor in the middle of the night one time, and I was like, I got a game idea.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down in the notes app on my phone, and then went back to sleep. And it was Minesweeper, but a tactics game. And so I made that prototype, and I was like, oh, this is basically the whole thing. It just needs polish.
Yeah.
And then I just continued working on it until it was a whole game. And what I really like about it is that notes app that I wrote in a fever one night. It really accurately describes the final game.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I was able to reach that finish line, is because I could see it. In a lot of other projects, I think every creator I've ever talked to has the issue of like, I just have so many projects and finishing them is so hard. And I think
Yeah.
a big part of that is that being able to visualize what it actually is going to be at the end is so hard.
Yeah, because you can be like, oh, especially if you're coming from like a broad genre standpoint. It's like I want to make a Metroidvania. So someone might often say foolishly.
Like me,
Yes,
currently.
as they add it to their pile of unfinished projects. Yeah, that is like, what is a? Because that's the thing. Because you find yourself the question like, oh, I want to make this, but then you like, well, what constitutes a search action game? Like, what is the finished version of this?
It's usually I find that when I'm like, oh, I want to make this game, I have a vibe in mind.
Yeah.
And that's good, and I think that's important. Like, you have to have a vibe in mind when you're creating something, but it's really hard to transpose a vibe into a tangible thing.
Right.
And that's where the struggle is. It's really hard. I think some artists are really good at that, and it makes them very prolific. And I envy those people a lot, though I'm sure they have struggles of their own.
Yeah. Right. I doubt there's always. I think everyone has like different. Everyone's got their different strengths. Because I'm sure sometimes like those that kind of like Vive based. If that person who is very good at making their Vive would probably look at other people who can make like, man, I wish I could make games like that, but my mind just does not wrap around that kind of like design process.
Oh yeah, cyclical jealousy for sure.
Right. Everyone is just jealous of each other and their ability to like. I'm jealous of the ability to just make a game. Like what?
Yeah.
Because no, I'm lying. I'm gonna be. I am making one soon. I'm excited to finally make a interactive piece of art that is commonly referred to as a video game. But yeah, like the process, because like what was the extent of? Do you remember the extent of that notes app? Was it like here is the? Was it beyond? What's the thing? Was it something? Did you have notes beyond Minesweeper but tactics? That kind
Yeah,
of,
it was pretty. Hold on, let me see if I
Yeah.
can find it. Oh yeah. Turn-based resource collection strategy game using Minesweeper's mechanics as a base for progression.
Okay.
Setting is in a cave. The player is mining. The mines in Minesweeper are volatile gas chambers. Mining into them causes an explosion that kills the player units and destroys nearby tiles. And so that was part of the idea. Is that in Minesweeper, if you've ever played Minesweeper
Yeah.
on your, it came pre-installed on Windows for. Does it still? Hold on.
Probably. Let me see.
No, it doesn't. Okay,
Oh,
well,
okay.
Windows 10 is a
Yeah.
travesty of an operating system because it doesn't have Minesweeper on it. When you hit a mine, which you do all the time because nobody knows how to play Minesweeper, the game is over. It just ends.
Yeah.
And it's super frustrating, especially when you play Minesweeper obsessively like I did and was at that time. There are situations where you have to guess.
Yeah.
It's where there is no. You have some information, but there is truly a 50-50 chance between things. You choose the wrong one, and then you lose the whole round that you're playing. It's super
Yeah.
frustrating.
There-
And I was super frustrated by that.
Right.
And so I
there-
made a game where, a single mistake doesn't end the game for you. It just sets you back a little bit.
Yeah, and that like it structurally falls like it thematically, feeds into like this kind of like underground infested mining sort of scenario too. So it all loop. That is you had your fever dream nighttime notes app. You landed on something more thorough than some game jams I've seen that I've been a part of. That a more thought out like beginning, middle, and end.
I mean, that is why I dedicated a year to this project.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly was that I know what this game actually is. I've made the prototype, which is the game. I just need to do the finishing part, which was really hard for a lot of the reasons that are stupid, and I hate that it was hard. Finishing stuff is so hard for reasons that it shouldn't be. Because the game was there for months and months, but it wasn't. I hate to use the word like market ready or commercially ready or anything, but it wasn't. It was not something that, I would put up for sale for a long time.
Yeah, right. Indiepocalypse itself is born out of my anxiety of not wanting to make things that in my mind were market ready. I was like, I just didn't want to spend that much time on a thing, make it that certain what my impression of market ready length was. So, Indiepocalypse is me brute forcing a different market into existence that hopefully will someday be there for me. But that is because what does that mean? And increasingly, if you're paying attention to, even like 2 years, since the 3 years that you've made this game, what you would consider to be market ready has shifted so much, I think.
Sure, market ready is a weird concept that I think largely refers to weird details adjacent to the game itself or the product itself, like oh god, I mean, I'm struggling to articulate specifics, but does it have Steam achievements? Is this weird? Like, there's so many comments on this game's Steam page that are like, oh, this is cool. I would consider getting it if it had Steam achievements in it. And I'm like, what? Why? Why does that have any bearing on whether you buy a game or not?
That is, I say this as someone who has retro achievements running on all the legally dumped emulators I use. That is a very weird thing.
I don't have anything. I have nothing against achievements, but it's a weird expectation to have from any game. They're a pain in the ass to implement, by the way.
Right, I can only imagine.
If you ever find yourself thinking, "Oh, why doesn't this game have Steam achievements? Every game has Steam achievements." It's because it sucks.
Yeah, it's to me it always seems like a nice bonus more than like a necessity. It's never something that's driven me to like, well, I'm not going to play this game because it doesn't have a Chivo. I can't get my Chivos. Because even with like the Steam ecosystem, like there aren't like are there people who pay attention to those on Steam? I mean, I guess there must be.
There must be.
But like, it's such a strange thing. I'm trying to look at my own Steam achievements. Where am I? I'm looking at my recent activity is very. I don't launch Steam apparently. My recent activity is playing the demo of Ghost Pia, and then launching what's it called? What the hell is that thing called? I actually do not have recently played. Tyranno Builder, launching Tyranno Builder to fix someone's game or to port someone's game from Mac to Windows for Indiepocalypse.
Oh,
like to publish the Windows build because they had trouble for whatever reason they couldn't publish a Windows build from their Mac or whatever. I do have 7 perfect games where I've got all the achievements in those, but that's it. Anyway, achievements. Kiefer, what's your greatest achievement in gaming? Have you ever played a game specifically for done a thing in a game specifically for an achievement?
Oh God, I have no idea. I don't keep track of most of the things that I do in games that I play. I have some attention deficit thing going on that makes me erase things from my memory sometimes. I have no idea.
So that's the perfect answer. The answer is no. You don't have at least if you did, it was not memorable. It was a passing experience of never, doing some arbitrary because it could be an interesting part, I think, of game design in like this kind of like meta level of game design themselves, or kind of like as a way to like clue players in on certain aspects of what a game can offer. Imagine coming to Symphony of the Night, as ignorant of what the game is and being like, how do I get this 200% map unlock achievement? Huh? There's only one map. And I had a weird thought where it's like, where did I learn that? Where did I learn that it had an inverted castle? I feel like it's one of those things that I've always known in my life.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing about old games, I think, particularly, is that they have these secrets in them that pre-internet era were just, you experienced them so much differently as a player. Like a friend and I were talking about Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Yeah.
It was the second Kirby game for the Game Boy, and you play through the game. It's fun. It's great, and then you fight the final boss, who was the same final boss as the first game. It's King Dedede. He's a big. I don't even know what he is. It's like a penguin or something.
I believe he's a penguin. Yeah.
who's big and mean, and you fight him for some reason. It's not clear, and it doesn't matter.
I think he's taking a
and
lot
then
of food or something. Seems like his kind of vibe.
in the first game, he's like stealing your food. Yeah, in the second game, they don't really describe what's going on.
They just dislike each other at that point.
Well, and so what's unclear is that you beat the game and you defeat the final boss, and then there's some credits that play, and it shows all the names of the characters, and then at the end it says "the end?" question mark, and it's like, what do you mean question mark? What do you mean the end? And turns out that if you do all these secret things in every single level of the game, then when you beat the final boss, you unlock a second, much harder boss fight. And there's no dialogue in this game. I don't think there's any text in the whole game except like level names. And it's just so bizarre, like pre-internet, pre-anything. You just found that out by bashing your head against something.
Right.
Until you discovered something new.
Yeah, there was a time where I got very good at, like, I could, with some regularity, complete The Legend of Zelda very quickly, like in a single, or Link to the Past, that is, and this speaks to like a different era of time where like it was a thing, like I could beat this thing through in a day, but like how did I find all these secrets? I just kind of poked around forever.
Yeah.
And be like,
it was. I remember someone talking about the original Mario game and being like, returning to the original Mario game and being like, oh, I remember playing Mario when I was a kid. I loved that game. And playing it and being like, this is so hard. I remember beating this game as a small child.
Yeah.
How did I do that? Was I that good at video games? No. Children are terrible at video games. It's just the like repeated effort. It's the bashing your head against that wall.
Yeah.
But I feel like is sort of missing from a lot of modern gaming.
Yeah.
I would say that's a really important aspect of indie games. I think that's something that, like, there is no wiki for somebody's no budget art game.
Yeah, I've had a weird thought to enter my brain like a year or so ago, maybe more, is like modern games really want you to beat them. They want you to complete them.
They want you to play them multiple times.
Right. And there's like, so it's hard to lose them, if that makes sense. It's hard to not complete them, and like it's harder to, because it's a different design philosophy, there isn't like we're selling this game for $50. We want to make sure that what is ultimately like a 20-minute experience lasts a very long time.
Yeah, you have to farm a certain number of hours out of your players, and it's to the detriment of a lot of games, especially the AAA ones, I would say, where there's where you have everyone complaining about like, well, the game is cool, but it has this like, you have to grind to do something that's unrelated from the normal gameplay just to like pad hours and like fill expectations of people that are like, oh, it should have RPG elements in the game, whatever that means.
Yes, it means you have numbers that go up.
Yeah.
Like arbitrarily. Right. It's as someone who is a big fan of RPGs, get to those RPG. It's like I don't want chocolate in like the middle of my tacos,
Yeah, and there are. I mean, I like RPGs as well, and I think are certain games where you play them for 50 hours or 100 hours, like that's how the game goes. But not every game should be that.
Right.
I was gonna say not every game needs to be that, but I think not every game should be that for sure. We need shorter games in addition to those epics, because who has time for a 100-hour game? Every time they play a video game.
And a lot of times I feel like they don't like really justify their 100 hours,
No, because the game wasn't designed for that. It's not, they're trying to force that much game into it.
Yeah, they're kind of like weird. I think I've sometimes run into that with games that are just like 8 hours long, It feels like,
because 8 hours is a long time.
Right. I was like, oh, this kind of like doesn't need to be as long as like there is like, oh no, this is this long because games are supposed to be this long, you know, this kind of impression of how long a video game is supposed to be. But I've been cruising through games pretty regularly, and I like how like I've been going through like the FromSoft back catalog for these past few months, and I don't know if I've hit one of those that's over 10 hours, and those are like all RPGs, you know, and most of them are open world. Some of them are open world. A lot of them are role playing games, you know, or action role playing games, but they're still like short, tight little experiences, you know.
Yeah, I think games are naturally longer than movies, for instance, because I think that's an easy comparison. You know, when people talking about playtime versus like price point and stuff like that. And a movie is usually around like 90 minutes to 2 hours, which is, I think you would expect a game to be longer than that, not because there's more stuff in it, but I think the reason games play longer is that you control the pace of it most of the time, and you can sit still for 30 minute staring at a wall if you want, and there's nothing stopping you from doing that, and often you will. While playing a game, you know, you'll either like have to redo a fight, or you'll stop and like reread dialogue because you're invested, or spacing out or whatever. And so I think games will naturally play longer, but this expectation that they need to have 50 hours of content,
right,
is not that.
Yeah,
you know, that's
no. Listen. If you're the right kind of person, you'll spend hundreds of hours with Bubsy 3D. You know.
Yeah.
But there is right. I've been thinking more of games as like equivalent to like a TV series. You know. And that, like, I mean, like, I wonder if games should be, if our people are borrowing from other medium, I would, like, it makes more sense to, like, borrow from, like, television, you know, where it's, like, you could find these, like, clean hour-long little bites of a 50-hour game, much like I'd watch, like, one episode of a 6-season TV show.
Mm-hmm. That's funny you mentioned that, because, so I'm working on a new game right now, which is very expensive. And the weird thing about games being expensive to develop is that you're like, oh, is it expensive because of all the production costs? And no, it's expensive because I need to pay my rent.
Yeah.
So that's the only expense. But anyway, we have been talking about making this game work and keeping ourselves afloat while making this game, and various budgeting options. And aside from investors, which is a very official and high stakes version of budgeting a game, you have things like Kickstarter and other crowdsourcing and Patreon and whatnot. And when we were talking about the difference between getting an investor versus getting a Kickstarter, the Kickstarter campaigns usually are like $20,000 is like a pretty big amount of money. You think $20K is like, that's a lot of money. And when you see a Kickstarter that's looking for $20,000, that's huge. And you think, wow, if they get that money, then this game is going to be great. But if it takes you 2 years to develop a game, $20,000 is below minimum wage if you have a single person working on the game. And putting that into context is very strange. Sorry, not below minimum, below the poverty line.
Right. Yes, it's well below.
If you have one person working on the game, and we have 2, so that's, and there's the third one. So that I guess that's kind of how Toby Fox Deltarune is releasing that game. Started releasing it in chapters, and it's cool. It lets you follow it as a fan. You play a chunk of it. It is kind of like TV, where you're like getting the next episode and experiencing that, and then being like, I can't wait for the next one to come out.
I do, like, I think I've been thinking similarly, like, people like, well, why don't game developers make a bunch of, like, if you want to make a bunch of little games, do it like you would an author and make like a like a short, like the equivalent of a short story collection, as like hey, I need to also make money. It's like short story collections are like an often way of like, well, if you made a bunch of short stories, you put them to different anthologies, you publish them over the years on different sites, and then you collect them all. But that's like not a thing really in game development. Similarly, to how
Right.
episodic games are less common as well. But speaking of Toby Fox, do you have a favorite Toho character, Kiefer?
I barely know what it is. I've made a game that's I think a Toho game. I didn't know. I programmed it. I don't know. I've never played a Toho game.
What game was it?
It's called Digital Soul Data. It was for a game jam.
Oh no, that's Bullet Hell inspired, but I do not believe it is also an Indiepocalypse, not a Toho game.
No, yeah, I don't even know. So I just don't even have enough information to answer the question.
So the answer is that's why it's important to think of a no. A fun thing, a friend of the show in the zine, Bianca Domar, had made a top 10 for that game, and was like, "How do you beat this game? It's really long." I was like, "What do you mean? It's in like 10 minutes long?" And it's like, that is like the fun gulf of like. Listen, maybe I'm a hardcore gamer. I don't know, but I'm like, was it? I mean, it's very generous for a Bullet Hell. Like,
they're timed.
Yeah.
I mean, bullet hells specifically are like you can't take longer on a certain level unless you die and have to restart it.
Right. But it was like,
so
it was more a case like
it'll
how
take
like,
you.
She was chipping away at the game for like hours, and I was like, right, gamers, and I also love. I love the genre, so.
Oh, it's fair. I mean, I never beat the game that we made, and I programmed it, so I couldn't beat that boss fight. It was the end of the game jam, and I was like, you know what? I can't do it, but I'm sure it's possible. Somebody else.
It is. I will say comfortably, it's possible. But follow up question, what is your favorite type of rock?
If we're talking geology,
we're talking whatever you want to talk.
I think malachite.
Okay.
Remember, big fan of a polished malachite. If we're talking music,
yes,
punk rock.
Okay, well, listen, Kiefer, you're in luck because this thing has been 33%. Or 66% punk rock, or no, I don't know, punk rock adjacent. If we can discuss this later after the break. Kiefer, thank you for being here. We'll discuss.
Thanks for having me.
We'll discuss the intricacies of genres and subgenres of punk rock maybe after we come back from a break of about a minute and 35 seconds. I'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Minutemen with There Ain't Shit on TV Tonight. That was my thing of like Minutemen, Double Nickels on a Dime. That's a punk album ostensibly, but it's also like same with the aforementioned Husker Du. Husker Du is also, I guess, ostensibly punk rock, but are they post punk? Are they like? Who knows? I love subgenres within music because they kind of go all over the place. I didn't realize it's because of the thing I never thought about. Man, could you imagine Zen Arcade and Double Nickels on a Dime coming out in the same year? What a year to live. Anyway, we're back with this is the whole crew. This is the whole crew sesh. Hello, welcome, whole crew.
Hello.
Howdy.
I don't know if anyone has an answer. What is your favorite specific niche genre of like hyper specific genre of music? Kind of like or what, like not your broad rock, rap, punk, folk, etc. But like on here they have post hardcore for Zen Arcade as a genre.
I'd say smaller music artists that you can tell don't sing on key or properly, but you just like them anyways.
Yes. I don't know what I know what you're saying. I don't know if there is probably a name for that, but I don't know what it is.
Well, they often like have different genres
Yeah.
as well within their music, so it's like I don't know what to call them.
Right. But there's probably like also a word for that specific type of like singing, because there's 80 million like subgenres within, especially on Bandcamp, where people just kind of make up their own stuff.
Yeah, I never know when people ask what kind of music you like. I just say everything.
Yeah, that's pretty much. If you are an avid Indiepocalypse radio listener, that is, I try to do it. I mean, obviously it leans towards certain things because punk songs are short, so they're good for breaks, and weird jazz-inspired things are longer, so they're good for the preamble. But yeah, I just kind of love stuff. I go to Bandcamp. I pretty much just like try to listen to everything they put up there on their daily, and it leads you to learning that you can just like a lot of different stuff.
Spend a lot of time on SoundCloud and stuff, finding weed music. I would say it's almost like a hobby for me.
Right, because you can just like, people are like, somebody made an album while we were recording this, or
and it was me.
Song. Yeah, right. People are making music constantly. Oh my God, sorry, I got distracted for a moment. I was on YouTube and they're playing Everybody Comes to Hanks. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But music, yeah. No, you're joke keeper, but do you make music at all, or is anyone else how multidisciplinary this is? And Rodfire, you're talking about making websites in general art. Like, I assume this is a very multidisciplinary gang of people.
I have attempted music.
Yeah.
I was not very good. I need to actually look up how people properly write just melodies and such before I go back at it.
Yeah. I have a keyboard sitting in the corner of this room, aspirationally.
Yeah, it's tough. Music is really hard.
But I was like, my theory is like, if I learn like the keyboard, if I just like kind of learn the core of it, if I can, just because I feel like that kind of like teaches you all the stuff, and then you can apply that to other instruments.
And learning the piano is good in the realm of digital music as well, because if you learn the piano roll, then you can just do everything with MIDI. There's so many ways to make music. You also don't need to play anything to make music. I mean, sampling is such an insane and awesome system.
Yeah, there's, I mean, I listen to a ton. I listen to like, plenty of ambient track and field recordings too, which are their own whole other like style of music, I mean, the ambient and field recordings are they themselves two entirely different genres of music. They just overlap in some spots, But like, field recordings is without even playing an instrument, and trying to discover like what is finding music in just like life
out in the wild.
Right. It's a cool thing. And that's also one of the things I really do like about Bandcamp, is that they will have like top 10, field. Here's a list of 10 top field recording albums or whatever, Like they're very encouraging of the very not radio friendly side of Bandcamp, which I think.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, hello.
Actually, bringing up Bandcamp is actually something. Bandcamp, was a subsidiary of Epic Games now.
Yes.
I guess.
Right.
Bandcamp, I think. I don't know if they're presently doing this, but they used to have like these journalists who would kind of like write up all these roundups, and I feel like they were kind of really. They had this kind of culture of engaging with the creators on their platform, and I really would like to see that from Itch.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Itch could totally do that, and it would actually be really cool if they did.
Yeah, to give some kind of, I guess, like some editorial context. And I mean, of course, the beautiful thing about Itch is anyone and everyone can post something, which is the same with Bandcamp. But it does really help with Bandcamp to have this this contextualizing also of the cultural or subcultural history that music is coming out of, and I think that games could really benefit from that.
Yeah, also it's a way to kind of bring new life to overlooked or interesting projects that aren't new anymore. Here's a bunch of games which have some kind of through line, and they're all I recommend them as a journalist, and then and they're not latest release, you get your 48 hours on the front page and then you're kind of gone forever.
Right, and there's all sorts of, Navigator is their thing that is literally that's what you're describing. That's their official name for what they call it. It's hey, let's go through this stylistic path, of these different albums. And I think a lot of that is just Bandcamp, even before Epic bought them, had probably more money and more staff than Itch does. That's I'm sure given the same resources, Itch would do something similar. That's what I always assumed, that Itch is it's a blessing that it exists at all in a lot of ways. But there is it is something that I think about, wow, would it be cool if there was you get hey, here's 15, here's the Chilean shoegaze scene,
Oh.
But it said here's Itch being okay, here are here's a collection of here's a lot of platformers being made in Eastern Europe. That kind of
Chilean fairy hentai dating games.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are local scenes all over the world making these sorts of it's not people in isolation making a game all the time. But I think
or collections that are games made in isolation of one another that are deeply connected
right.
by some coincidence.
That's the dominant mood.
I've myself have been trying to do that through just within my now realm of Indiepocalypse, because I'm there's a lot of games in this thing. How do you navigate it? So I've been trying to do basically rip off what how does Bandcamp handle their problem with too much music, and I do the last one I did games that were still exclusive, and I've done games from what do I have? I have games from South America. I have games that were in the IGF Nouveau, those sorts of things. I do I make double features is what I call them, of two games that are vaguely related, but I don't publish them on Itch necessarily. I guess I could. I guess it couldn't hurt to publish them on Itch.
You release them?
Yeah, I do have the write-ups. If people are looking there out in the digital space, if you go to indiepocalypse.com/features, or it might just be pizzapranks.com/features. I don't know if I did the Indiepocalypse redirect. I have 6 of them up right now of just hey, these are games that are related. Try and check them out. Play them together. Trying to contextualize these different games. But yeah, there is a. I mean, that's been kind of my long-standing issue. Seems so dramatic, but
we love drama.
But when on the Itch's rare blog posts are usually 5 game developers that
Sure.
It's hey, look, from the Itch.io blog, it is you know, usually is very usually games. Sometimes games that are published. This was actually not as bad actually. Their last one was a bit better. Games of the week, but then it's like whatever. People or sometimes it's published stuff. I think like Tunic was on there once, and it's like
It's indie, but only in the sense that it's not high budget
right.
AAA studio.
I don't know. I would call $4 million a high budget.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
There, I pick on Tunic a lot just because there's like I think is it a IGN or Polygon article? There's some article talking with someone from Finji, and there's like a pull quote of like you can't make a game for less than $4 million nowadays.
Which in a certain sense, I know what they're I now understand the context of that. Like looking at the budget for just a two-person team for 2 years is like if you're trying to like just to get by. I mean, like the costs on things are just paying people, right? And if you have a team of like 24 people on a game and you're developing it for 2 years, I mean that stacks up really fast. If you're trying to pay those people not just like minimum wage, but decent salaries.
Right. I work in an office and I work in payroll stuff. I see how much money it costs to pay people every week, and
it's insane.
It's a lot of money. And as someone who gets that pay as well, I'm glad I get it. Like it's one of but I think part of that, like, I mean, that $4 million is very high, but I think that's probably just because what is expected to like how long a game has to be, and like a scale of what a game is expected to be contributes to that very high thing. I think you could make a game on a more modest like $40K in a year, among two people.
I mean, I made a game for I think $300 is all that I paid to make that game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't pay people a lot of money to make games for Indiepocalypse, and those games are very good, I think, still. And those people make those games in like 3 months. So it's kind of like you technically don't need that, but I think that part of it is like how do you convince people that games can actually be short, and like more sensibly scalable.
I think that's part of what you're describing with itch doing more journalism on smaller creators would accomplish, is normalizing that context.
Because I think it's because indie games are more in the kind of like if you compare them to film, the indie space is like on the same level as like the indie space in movie that is like Fox Searchlight stuff, where it's like, is Wes Anderson an indie filmmaker? Kind of, or like that kind of like smaller budget space that's not $130 million. It's only a modest $20 million. But I think a lot of game devs, especially what's on itch, falls more into the realm of like experimental short film. Of just like no budget, often not commercially minded in the kind of very traditional sense, which is like
not publisher friendly.
Right. Not very. I mean, the thing is, they're not publisher friendly until people like them.
It's honestly surprising how many like big games or like just games that you can tell was a lot ever put into it that are just free on itch.
Right. Yeah.
They're just free.
Right. These games are just like years upon years upon years long efforts. Oh, I rarely reference the chat, but if I aspirationally of life, if I would love to be the Roger Corman of video games, it would be a true dream to become a Roger Corman of video games, of just slapping shit together for the cheapest possible thing. But like, you got to make it, you just got to like, okay, we can make this thing on no money, reuse a bunch of stuff, and Yeah, people should like reuse stuff way more. Also, I think I love uh, reusing stuff, and people have always like reused stuff.
Reuse everything,
Yeah,
just everything. Also,
All art.
charge for everything. Not
true.
enough people are charging for this stuff.
Yeah,
Heck, for was where I had someone in the Discord server that was like dedicated to the jam had to bully me into making it $4.
yeah, and $4.
I would not have made it $4 if they didn't bully me into doing so.
And like that is, see, that's the thing is like I'll pay way more than $4 for like an album, and like that is
Well,
like a perfect, and it's like a perfect length for like a short game,
I think it was originally going to be like $1,
Yeah, but even
if money at all, but they were like, no, more. You put effort into this, put it more.
Right.
And it sets a precedent for others as well. I think I launched Katya's Abyss at $11, which is more than what I think players would price it at, right?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, fuck you though. Like I put a lot of work into this game.
Yeah, and it's like you want to make back the money, or like
And I want to set that precedent. I want to put my money where my mouth is, I guess, so to speak. To say like games are worth money.
yes.
My games are worth money. Other games are also worth
Yeah,
money.
that is. I mean, I'm very biased, and that is my general philosophy. Of even when people don't say that, I'm saying that for them. Being like, no, you wanna pay money for this thing, and people I think are more willing, or like increasingly, like they're more willing to do the. The problem is gamers. The problem is the gamers. It always has been. It's those cursed beings of gamers. But like, I had a whole like friend group that like came up to my place, and they each bought an issue like on the little cassette, and they were just like, oh yeah, this is cool. They're like it's a cool thing that like you can just like buy small art, and like I think people are like the mentality of games as like a way to spend time, I think is like a turn off to some people.
I recently got this book. Have you heard of it called "The Game Industry Doesn't Exist" by Brendan K something?
Yes,
Whatever.
I knew the name and I could not help you. You're on your own there. It's one of those things I've never said out loud. I was hoping you would say it out loud so that I would know how to say it.
We will never know.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
No, I did not, but I do know
started,
the book.
I started. I kind of trailed off, but maybe I should try it again. But it was like what I read was like kind of I guess talking about like the how kind of like the way that we collectively culturally understand games is like very different to the reality of game development, where it's like there is if you think of something like music, there is like a whole like you don't consider music. Well, I mean, I guess some people do. It's like it's kind of more understood that kind of music is kind of like something that anyone can do, and that there are different levels of expression or participation in it, which all have value, and that there is like people who make games, people who make music in their spare time. There's like local bands. You can see local bands, and then you can.
Or like even just like people singing in a choir, or people singing together in a kind of non-professional,
Right.
but like culturally important sense.
Yes, yeah, and then with but with games, it's kind of like this like AAA or bust kind of like like
monolithic
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah, exactly, and like yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think a lot of I think like it's like people are kind of resentful of like a kind of a low fidelity in games, which
Right.
isn't really a problem.
No, I like the term low because I I like the term low fidelity and other terms that aren't retro, uh, because I think they better describe games. Because I don't think necessarily low fidelity is like harkening back strictly to like a previous era more than it's just like a style to work in. And I really, it's very coincidental that you said like local bands, because that's what I was using last week to describe the people making the games in Indiepocalypse. So I was like, they're like, I was like, it's indie, but like indie, like your local band is indie. You know, it's like the local bands of game dev. Try and like find a way to describe the scale that a lot of people within the thing work at, and I think that is like good parallel thought. I'm glad it was there. But yeah, I think there is a sort of that there is that expectation of like, you know, that AAA or bust is very strong, because like things that are not AAA are just like aspiring to be it one day, you know, or that's what you should be, you know. When it's really, you can just like sorry.
So I guess like it's like the indie scene, or like I think it's also kind of like it's like it lack. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it lacks the confidence because it's like a very desperate place financially, or like no exposure. But I also think it's like I think we could all be more unapologetic of this, or like kind of like draw a line in the sand or something, of like, as opposed to kind of like hashtag here's my shoot 'em up. That,
yes.
There's about a little fox called Tunic or something. I don't know what is this game? Like I googled it.
Oh, it's
yeah, but it's, I mean, if you think about like indie music, there is kind of like a swagger, or a, you know, there's something like supposedly cool about being like kind of an obscure act from wherever that no one knows about, but like a few specialists and cult, like I don't know, is a cult favorite of a few people. Like there's a kind of a coolness to that obscurity, and I guess like maybe people can thrive on that mysterious atmosphere a little more, or maybe there's a way to just have a little more strength in being unknown losers.
Yeah, and I think this is happening. Like if you get off itch, if you touch some grass,
get off bitch, touch grass.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, like you know, like you think of like a Cruelty Squad, or like a lot of these kind of games that I think are coming more from Instagram as like a primary audience. It's like it is like a different culture, like which I think has more of a with like kind of like obscurity, or kind of like inaccessible, like being obtuse, being a positive as opposed to a negative.
Right. No, I'm like, you know, I'm a big fan of, you know, Domino Club is a perfect example of this, of, you know, their, I don't know the time frame, but you know, they do their regular Domino Club jams, and they're just like, this is like people confident in like in a lot of their games are in some sense like, you know, made largely for themselves, with this like community. But there is, you know, those are not like games, and there's, you know, there's plenty of like collectives like Strange Paradise, I think does, or no, just Paradise. I don't know why I call them Strange Paradise. I think they're just called Paradise Club. Also is like a collective of people doing this. There's a new one that I forgot the name of that came out fairly recently. Infinite Tears, is that what I'm thinking of? Is Infinite Tears one of them? Yes, Infinite Tears, similar, doing like very obscure alternative vignettes and things like that. You know, Glorious Trainwrecks has been around for a very long time. Anyway, what I'm saying is there's a lot of shit, and I love it, and I love more of it. But like you said, if you've never heard of Grass before in your life, and you spend all your time online, you would think there's only like a couple hundred people within the game dev as a medium, you know?
Like count what said, it is a pretty difficult lived reality, both as an indie musician with a small cult following or a indie game maker with a small cult following. Like it's by no means like financially
No.
lucrative,
No.
or like nor in a kind of like personal self-esteem sense so validating. So understandably, it's a tough life.
Yeah. No, I've definitely constant refrain on I've mentioned is it's hard to tell someone that like, hey, I love the thing you do, and don't worry, it'll pay off with a lot of people will really love it 10 years from now, and it'll pay off then when you're deeply revered and respected. But
I think that kind of the mindset one has to do this work with. Like it's like you just have to hope that it matters to someone, and if it doesn't, it's also okay.
Right, as long as hopefully it'll matter to you in the time. That's, I guess, the most important part of it.
It's definitely one of those things where it's like at times I think to myself, which more important to me, working on something I know I love or being able to live,
right? Yes,
and have a good salary, and even like with the stuff I make now, I've always remind myself and keep myself in mind that I'm most likely not going to make anything out of this. Barely anyone's going to look at it, but I made it, so that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm always surprised when I see that someone's even bought one of my things. It's like, wow, why is someone buying my stuff?
Right. That is, I've a startling number of people have said Indiepocalypse is the first time they got paid. It's bleak in a way, but also it's like, tricky and difficult to work with because it's like I think it is like it's building, like the culture is building where someone is like not even like, oh, I don't even have Steam installed, I just play all my games off of itch. Is getting closer, but it's a young medium, and there's a myriad, there's a whole, it's incalculable, like to describe how games got to where they are as a medium, and the show does not have time for that. But very young, but it's cool, and there are cool people making stuff, and that's kind of why I still show up every day,
Mm-hmm. There will never be an end to all the games that are constantly coming out.
Yeah, I mean, if we stopped making games right now, like full stop, no more games are allowed to be made, but we didn't have to work or sleep or eat, we could still never play all of the games in our lifetime, probably,
Yeah, I have like hundreds of games in my Play Later collection.
Just do that. Stop making games and playing them all. Playing the old backlogs before we start making new ones.
And
it's not that world.
And I honestly don't even play a lot of games. That is like I was like, what about other art? There exists other art in the world. When am I supposed to watch movies if I'm playing all these video games all the time?
How are you supposed to do anything?
Yeah.
It's there's so much.
Yeah. And I think that's like a good mentality, just like, I cheekily called this thing Indiepocalypse 3.5 years ago. But there have always been, and there always will be, too many games to play. And really, it's good to just like stop playing games sometimes. I think games benefit from people who are not playing games, much like any other art form does.
There's a story of Nintendo being really benefiting from that in its early days, isn't there? Of them hiring people who were completely disconnected from any other video games being made at the time and creating very unique and innovative experiences as a result of it.
Yeah, well, what is the the famed Earthbound man. What's his name? Ito, I think it is. Itoi. He was what? Like he was an artist before that, right? Like an artist or an essayist or something. And he like a more general artist, not necessarily just a game designer.
I think so.
And I think there is like, and that's how you get a thing that. I mentioned that he's fresh on the brain because a friend found like a short story collection he did with like Murakami, or a short essay collection, one of those two. And I was like, oh yeah, right. A lot of like, it benefits to like, and that's how you get a very a thing that people think about all the time still and obsess with, a thing that is still like very singular in its kind of like design. But yeah, that is I don't know. I trailed off. I lost my thought. Anyway, stop playing video games. If you're a game designer, spend a year without playing video games and like watch a movie, go outside, read a book.
Honestly, I feel like I need to play more games because I end up doing everything but play games. Yeah, I'll make games, but I won't actually play them. There's still one game that I helped work on, and I have not played it at all.
Yeah, that's that is it informs art in like a different way. I think that's beneficial. People playing video games who only play video games just make more video games. They make like dilutions of dilutions of dilutions. It's like, this is my version of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. It has a different little guy with a sword who explores dungeons. But anyway,
it's called Tunic. It had a $4 million budget. Anyway,
so okay, listen. I'm not saying if you say here's my version of Legend of Zelda, you'll get a. And I feel mean. Like I'm picking on Tunic. I don't really. I've never played it. I'm sure it's very good. It's just a very good that article that like that pull quote is a very good pull quote to pick on of the detachment of the game industry from the medium of creating games. But anyway, if you want to give me $4 million, I'll make a game for that. I'll hire.
If you want to give me $4 million, I'll just take it.
Yeah. Disappear into the wilderness.
Yes.
My dream is someone just to hire me just to make stuff.
Yeah.
They don't even care what I make. They just hire me like, oh yeah, just make stuff and I'll pay you.
That's, if you take that $4 million and subtract about like 3,999,990, most of the dollars from that, that is Indiepocalypse monthly commissioned games. But if people gave me more money, I could pay people better money to do that.
If someone handed me $4 million, first off, I'm gonna go ahead and pay my taxes right off the back.
Yes.
Second off, I'm throwing at least half of it into retirement.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We are cresting over 2 hours of the show, which is a good length for this show, and not at all someone was saying we have to go. So we got to the end of the show. Thank you all, Kiefer, Rodfire Productions, Fantasia, Malware. Thank you all for being here on the show. We are hitting the important part of the end of a show, which is how do we find these people after the show is over? Fantasia, Malware, I'll start off with you. Where can people find your stuff if we want to look for it?
You would go to www.fantasia-malware.net.
Perfect.
And then you would look at it.
I got you covered. I got these links in the holster, ready to go.
Peace.
Yes. And from there, you can go to all sorts of the projects, Gabriel, Jira's, Chloe's individual things. Websites, folks. Get your own website.
What do I think of next?
Who knows?
Oh, for me, you'd go to deadinsideartist.art. It'll link to not only my itch, but just any other small website I've made. And there's multiple. Trust me, there's multiple.
Yes. We talked about making a website, but did you know you can make 2 websites, 3 websites, 4 websites?
Just if you own a domain, you can make so many subdomain websites as well.
Listen,
As many as your heart can.
I highly encourage people, even if you don't have a website, at least purchase like a domain, and then you can just redirect it to other things. But like, own your shit at the top level, you know.
Own all of it. Trust me, it's great.
Yeah.
Just don't fall into the hole of buying so many domains because they're cool.
Right. Listen, or a fun vanity domain. What did I want to buy? I wanted to buy. I forget what it was. I wanted to buy a fun domain, but it would have cost like $1,000 or something ridiculous, or $600. But it would have been it would have been funny. But I don't remember what it was. Kiefer, where can people find your work?
I'm on itch.io at 100,000, spelled out. I'm also on Twitch. I stream weekly game dev on Twitch at twitch.tv/100,000.
Perfect.
My main 2 things.
There was a time where I had, because I'm only on here once a week for like 2 hours, and I used to just like follow a bunch of people and then auto host. They set an auto host random to all the people I follow, but it doesn't do that anymore, which sucks. I don't know why they took that feature off. It seemed like it would be a cool thing. That way I could be like, hey, if you don't, I'm only here once a week, but if you pop in during the week, you'll probably find some other new people there.
They took out auto host?
I think they did.
No.
It was a cool thing, because then otherwise, who knows? Anyway. That's it. Indiepocalypse. It's cool. I think you should buy it on. That's me saying myself now. Indiepocalypse.com is where you get it. You can get off my own website. You can go through peachpranks.itch.io to buy it on itch if you want. If you go to indiepocalypse.com/tapes or on any of the itch pages, you can buy a physical edition of Indiepocalypse, which is it's a USB stick inside of a cassette case with like the cover art on it. They look really cool. I like them. I encourage people making games. If you go to events, it's a cool, inefficient way, or not, no, very efficient, inexpensive way to sell your games at local events. Indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. You can just subscribe there. It's like a monthly zine subscription, or if you get the physical ones there, you can get zines there. If you go for only $5, you can get like just the commission games each month, which is like $5 for a cool game from the people who are like, at the forefront of like underground game dev. I think that's a bargain. That's more than a bargain. It's like a steal. You're robbing from me when you do that, basically. So become the highwayman in your world, and I take my money, not my life. And subscribe to that, I guess. That's it. If you want to submit, if you want to join to be part of Indiepocalypse, indiepocalypse.com/submit. It's always open. Join the Indiepocalypse $6 club, which is once or twice a year. You will get $6 from me through PayPal after you get your initial like 60 or 70 or whatever. You'll be like, oh, look at that. I can buy a hamburger because Andrew sent me $6. Or something.
Can you even buy a hamburger, though?
If you go to like McDonald's, you probably can.
One of the cheaper ones.
Yeah, you can get they have dollar menus still, right?
They
I don't
do.
know about that.
Yeah.
You can get like a $2 burger.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. Anyway, we're wrapping up the show. Cheap food is good. I like fast food. I like the food of the people. We did not mention it on this show, but sometimes the show just evolves into me talking about food and like what people like for food. And
But it's approaching lunchtime for
Yeah,
me, so I can feel that.
I'm extremely hungry. I'm getting food after this.
I am also very hungry. I'm getting food after this. And by getting food, I mean I'm going to microwave the McDonald's burger I have in my fridge.
Yeah.
That is, I think about, that's why I like going on trips, because when I go on trips, it's like, this is when I get, like, McDonald's burgers, or I go to the Taco Bell, and I'm like, yes, I excuse myself, and, like, will I give these companies all my personal information if it means I get free food? Yes, it does. I'm, that, just that right level of, who knows, I like inexpensive food. But anyway, we got to wrap up the show. We're closing it down, ending it on. Thank you all for being here. It's a blast. I love doing this show because I love hanging out with people, you know. But that said, goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Goodbye. Take my money.